So we'll now call the December 8th, 2020 regular meeting of council to order. Just before we get to adoption of the agenda, we typically show admiration for loyal staff during our holiday potluck. However, as we know, this year is a little different, and so we have to do it in front of YouTube, in front of the village, in front of the world. And so I'm pleased to present this little appreciation to Miss Carleena Shepherd for 10 years of service to the village of Valemount. Thank you so much, Carleena.
Thank you.
And with that, on to 2.1, adoption of the agenda for this evening. Councillor G, Councillor Blanchette, any additions? Hearing none, all in favor? Carries. Adoption under 3.1, adoption of the November 24th minutes. Councillor Pearson, Councillor G, any errors or omissions arising? All in favor? Carries. 3.2, adoption of the November 24th public hearing minutes. Councillor Blanchette, Councillor Pearson, any errors or omissions arising? All in favor? Carries. 4.1, we have a delegation from Ms. Penny Adams of the Northwest Invasive Plant Council. Hi, Penny, the floor is yours.
So quickly, I'm used to waiting until a whole lot more business is done. Thank you very much for inviting me to present to council. I think it's probably been about 5 years since I stood before the council, and at that point I was working with the aquatic invasive species program through the Columbia Basin Trust, which was being administered by NWIBC at the time. I'm going to share my screen if somebody will allow me to do that. There we go. Okay, is everybody able to see that?
You bet, Penny, thank you.
All right, so thank you very much, Mayor and council members and anybody else that may be sitting observing or listening to me. I'm going to go through this fairly quickly to allow question time. Some of you may have seen bits and pieces of it before, but please bear with me for anybody who is not really familiar with what the Northwest Invasive Plant Council does. So my name is Penny Adams. I'm the program manager for the Northwest Invasive Plant Council. And I actually have my education outreach assistant sitting in, observing silently and off video so that she can learn from what we're doing here and hopefully can help me out in future years. So we have, okay, so why is there we go. I'm just gonna go back for a minute here. So, like I said, Northwest Invasive Plant Council and Wayne Robinson very kindly invited me to present. Actually, I think I was supposed to try and set up something last January, but never was able to do it. So here we go. First of all, who we are, the Northwest Invasive Plant Council, we're a nonprofit agency. We basically administer funding coming from a number of different partners for invasive plant management. Our partners include municipalities, Ministry of Forests, Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Transport, regional districts, and First Nations, as well as private industry, mining, a couple of mines that we do work for. So we are responsible for invasive plant management. We provide education and outreach, information and materials. We manage 23 plus partner agreements. It's quite a complex program. It's right now I'm trying to get 23 partner reports done for the end of the year. We report to our partners on the activities and the use of their funds. We develop partnership opportunities, and we partner with Valemount to do invasive plant management within your municipality. We provide training, and that training isn't just like for our contractors, it's also for people who are just interested in knowing about plant identification and what they can do as individuals and private citizens. And we manage the Northwest Invasive Plant Management area contractors across the Northwest, and I'll just talk a little bit about the area that we cover. So this is the province of BC. This is the Northwest Invasive Plant Council. So you can see that we cover a huge area. I think on a per hectare basis, we probably get way less money than any of these smaller organizations down here, but we do what we can with the money that we get. And within that 1/3 of the province, we have 8 invasive plant management areas, and Valemount is in what we call the Robson Valley invasive plant management area. And it covers approximately 37 million hectares of land base, so over 1/3 of BC's land base. So you can imagine the challenges we have with being able to logistically and with money to satisfy what our partners need. Very quickly, what is meant by an invasive plant? It's non-indigenous. That means it's non-native. It comes from away. It has potential to pose undesirable or detrimental impacts on humans, animals, and ecosystems. So not everything is an invasive plant. Not everything that comes from away, not every ornamental that sort of escapes out of your garden becomes invasive. It becomes invasive when it fulfills these points that I'm pointing out now. So non-indigenous, potential to pose undesirable or detrimental impacts. It also includes noxious weeds, and that's where we get into the Weed Act of BC. It designates non-native plants that have detrimental impacts as noxious weeds. So something like a dandelion, a lot of people don't want it around, but it's not considered a noxious weed under the Weed Act. So we have noxious weeds under the Weed Act. We have provincially noxious weeds and regionally noxious weeds. And the regional noxious weeds, some of them do not show up in the Weed Act, but they have been developed through agreements with regional districts and so on for plants that they have some real concerns about. So again, they may be classified as provincially or regionally noxious. It does not apply to nuisance weeds, for example, like I said, a plantain or dandelion, things that have been in our ecosystems for a long time and coexist really, quite frankly, quite well with our native plants. So how did they get here? So arrival, human activity. So this is actually a picture of over in Europe, where florists and horticulture companies and whatnot bid on what they're going to bring into Canada, and then it ends up on our shelves here. So as ornamentals or landscaping and gardens, sometimes they're intentionally cultivated for food, brought in for medicinal purposes. Common comfrey might be a good example of that, an extremely invasive plant. And wildflower seed mixes, the bane of our existence, wildflower seed mixes, at least ones that we can't tell what seeds are in there. And how are they spread? Well, again, humans, boots, vehicles, tires, watercraft. And given that Valemount is quite a recreational area with their biking paths or mountain biking and so on, it's something that to really consider about educating people about how they can keep their vehicles clean and their boots clean and whatnot, so that we don't take these invasive species up into the subalpine and so on. So horticulture, market garden sales are quite often a reason why things get spread. Dumping. Don't know whether you have dumping problems in Valemount, but we certainly do in Prince George. Animals and birds, wind, and moving water. Impacts of invasive plant infestations. They may compete with native plants for resources. So that's if we're looking at some of our really unique ecosystems in the Northwest. This is a real concern. They reduce forage for berries and medicinal plants, medical plants. And they cause harm to human and animal health. Some species are toxic, poisonous, contain irritants. And one of the ones that's actually down around your area is Horiolism, which is toxic to horses. It can cause laminitis and have them founder. And reduces biodiversity, can lead to erosion and water siltation, and increase wildfire hazard. And some people ask questions about that, but a lot of our non-native invasive species have a lot of volatiles in them in terms of chemicals, and also the way they dry out, so they can actually act as a vector or a way that wildfire can spread quite quickly across the landscape. So the consequences of no action, and I've got a picture here. This is a common tansy infestation along the Heritage River Trail. So that's along the Chapman River in Prince George. This is actually the Horiolism that I just mentioned. This is down, I'm trying to remember, it's in Valemount. As you cross the railway tracks and you turn down towards Kinbasket Lake, we found an infestation down there and we're able to clear it up. So environmental impacts, ecosystems at risk or destroyed, as I mentioned before. Quite often they can form invasive monocultures. We have a number of plants, mountain bluet being one of them, and common tansy like this one that crowd out all our native species. And economic impacts. So this is something that is considered quite often by municipalities and cities and whatnot on utilities and transportation, recreation and tourism, as I mentioned before, forestry, agriculture, and for our forest floor foragers. Now, this is an invasion curve, and you can actually equate this to just about anything, including COVID. So just an interesting fact. So sort of think of that, but also thinking about invasive plants. So basically, this is the area that the plants occupy. This is a scale over time. So where our best bang for our buck is preventing these things from coming in altogether. But if we can't, so we have invasive species that come in, we look towards eradication. Get rid of them before they spread. So we have small numbers of localized populations. But if we can't do that, or if nothing is done, we have rapid increase in distribution and abundance. And so now we're spending our money on just basically containing them and hopefully trying to knock them back. And if we aren't able to do anything or nothing's done at that point, then we have invasive species. They're widespread and abundant throughout the potential range, and the dollar value in order to be able to control them or try to get rid of them goes up exponentially. So, and the only reason why I'm applying this to COVID as well, because this is exactly what's happened with COVID too. This invasion curve can be applied to many different things that are not native or that get introduced into our populations. So just a little interesting fact there. So for your information, I did up a map of locations that we surveyed in the Valemount area this year. So we survey municipal lands and inventory invasive plants. We also do private lands, road rights of way, so Ministry of Transport, as well as any local roads that may be looked after by the municipality or the village, and crown and public lands and water bodies. So for example, Cranberry Marsh is a conservancy land that's administered by the Ministry of Forests. Specific to the village of Valemount lands, municipal and private, this is what we have. So on this map, every dot here is a site that we've surveyed or are tracking over time. The purple squares are where we've applied mechanical treatment, which means digging or pulling or deadheading to either control or to hopefully try to eradicate the species. And chemical treatment, you'll see there's only a couple of them, and those are usually on our highest priority species and only with approval, either from the Ministry of Environment or the municipality or private landowners. So right now, if you look in Valemount, Valemount actually covers a slightly bigger area, but these are the sites that we have in Valemount. There are not a lot. However, when I walk through Valemount, I actually see, when I'm just sort of, Joe Blow walking through the streets, I see a lot more than what we have here. But again, we're constrained by budget as well as manpower in terms of what we can do. I'll go back to that actually, just hold on. Does anybody have any questions on this, or do you want to wait till the end?
Any questions?
No, good right now, thanks.
We're good, Penny, thanks.
Okay, I'm going through it quickly so you can hopefully have time for questions. So this is what we did in 2020, invasive plant management areas and activities in Valemount. We surveyed 16 sites. Those are the ones that I showed you on the previous slide. We inventoried 20 invasive plant species. And out of those invasive plant species, we have what are called REDRR, which is Regional Early Detection Rapid Response. Those are species that are high priority. We don't see very many of them. We have a chance to get rid of them immediately within 1 year or 2 year. And we also have high priority. So we have Regional Early Detection Rapid Response and high priority. We had 10 species, and those are the dark orange here. So baby's breath, whiplash hawkweed, cypress spurge, which is actually quite toxic, diffuse knapweed, yellow archangel, mountain bluet, and horiolisum. We also have priority species, high priority species, spotted knapweed, which most of you probably know is quite a problem in your area. Marsh plume thistle, I don't have it on here, but it is outside of your area, but it's really bad. Common tansy and chicory. And then we have the rest of the ones that are things like oxeye daisy and orange hawkweed, yellow hawkweed are ubiquitous across our landscape. They're very difficult for us to control. We can only really help people on small properties and so on. So This is what we inventoried. We treated common tansy and spotted knapweed with digging. We rarely use herbicide unless it is directed by our partner or it is a species that is extremely high priority, and if we can use a herbicide, we can knock it back within a year or so. But again, it's in discussion with our partners as to what we do. We use integrated pest management principles, which means we take a look at what's best for the environment where that plant's growing. We consider the social and economic consequences as well, and then we make a decision to use mechanical or chemical or a combination of both treatments. We have invasive plant management strategies. So this is not treatment, this is management. So we start, the very first thing you do is look at prevention. So if you think of that curve that I showed you, prevention is the very best thing that you can do, and it's the most cost effective. Then we have education, planning at the municipal level, determine priorities and funding commitment, partnerships with agencies like the NWIPC to deliver field work, and education to your constituents. And then we have reporting. So prevention, education, planning, partnership, and reporting. These are management strategies. Treatment strategies relate to what we actually do on the ground. So we have mechanical, chemical, so that's the herbicide that's applied, and please remember that it is a herbicide, it's not a pesticide. Pesticide is an all-encompassing term, and we've had people calling about, our herbicides affecting bee colonies. Well, herbicides only affect plants, they don't affect bees. There are some linkages, and there's a lot of research going on. We do not spray or use herbicide while plants are in flower to prevent our bees from coming to any plants that may possibly have any kind of chemical residue on them. So we allow the bees to do their thing with the plant in flower, and then once the flowering's gone is when, if we're going to use herbicide, that's when we do it. And there's also biological. We have biological control, although unfortunately it hasn't worked really well in the Cranberry Marsh area, and it's because over the years we have actually had some contractors mow or knock down or pull the Canada thistle there, and as a result, the biological control, which is, I believe it's a weevil, is basically disappearing and not doing what it's supposed to do. So we're going to be working on that. And then we have cultural, which is manipulation of the growing environment. And this is what people can do on properties. It's very difficult to do on a large scale. So mulching, burning, and grazing where appropriate. The legislation that you need to be aware of and that we have to obviously know really well, BC Weed Control Act and regulations. So this is when I go back to when I was talking about provincially and regionally noxious weeds. Integrated Pest Management Act and regulation, that's what guides a lot of the principles that we follow and the types of herbicides or mechanical treatments that we use. Forest and Range, so FERPA, Forest and Range Practices Act in forestry. The Oil and Gas Activities Act, and the National Energy Board Act, and there's actually another one too that I don't have here, which is a federal one which relates to the cross-border transportation of seed and trying to make sure that any seeds and seed lots coming into various areas are free of invasive plants. The reason why Forest and Range, Oil and Gas, and National Energy is because we do work and work with partners in oil and gas and mining as well. So in order to report invasive plants, and this is something I really encourage, and I can work with the village on this in terms of getting education out to and outreach out to your constituents, either through your website or other means. So everyone can help. We have Report a Weed, so that's for terrestrial and aquatic plants. It's an app you can download on Android or iOS operating systems. We have Report Invasives. However, this one includes everything, including animals. So it's actually used more down south where they have things like American bullfrog and feral pigs and those kinds of nasty things down south. And this is basically what the screens look like as you work through them. The most important thing, whether you use this one or this one, is if you do report something, you don't actually have to know the name. You don't even actually have to know the color. You can scroll through pictures, or you can just take a picture, record the location, give us some comments, and submit the report. And you don't have to be in wireless service that runs, the UTMs or map points are picked up off satellites. So as soon as you get into wireless service, once you've hit submit report, it automatically goes on its own, and then it's sent to me or to one of my contractors, and they come out and verify it and do treatment if necessary. So other ways to report or find information, you can call us. This is our toll-free hotline. You can contact the Ministry of Forests and Invasive Plant Specialist for the North, that's Denise MacLean. The Invasive Species Council of BC, really good resources on there, right from things that you can download for free and like publications and information and fact sheets, and also information about the various programs that they have, along with programs that all of us work with the Canadian Council of, Canadian Council on Invasive Species. And then there's the Invasive Species BC government website. It has a really, really long website name. I wish they'd go to what they call a tiny URL, but this is it. And we also have, eFlora Plant Atlas. This is out of UBC. It's a really good source to just look up things about plants. You can look up under common name, the color, and so on, but you can also, there's a section on invasive plants. So it's another way to perhaps help identify or at least make a decision as to whether you want to contact us to come and take a look. So that's basically in a nutshell and in very, very fast. And this slide I don't normally put up, but invariably councils ask me, well, how much is it going to cost? So, as I told Wayne, maybe consider increasing your budget to $2,000 from the $1,500 I think it was that you had last year. That would allow us to increase the number of surveys across the village itself and find any more of these priority plants that we hopefully could help you control or eradicate. Some of our organizations designate a small portion to the NWIPC Education Awareness Fund. It's a pooled fund, which allows us to develop education and outreach materials and handouts and things like that, and go to farmers markets and so on to spread the word. And we pool that fund so that we can do it all across the Northwest. And just for example, Telqua, which is similar in size and population, contributes $2,200, of which 200 of this is towards the education and awareness, and the rest, the other 2,000, is to doing invasive plant surveys and inventories. Very similar size, similar number of surveys that we do, and so on, just to give you some context. Other ways the village can help. You can create a page or provide links to the for invasive plant information. So you could link to our website. You could put up some of these other websites that I mentioned. Provide signage to educate constituents and visitors. We have a program that in BC that started about 5 years ago. We piggybacked off something out of Montana called Play Clean Go. It's now been adopted through a cooperative initiative through Canada at a federal level with the Montana, and we now have Play Clean Go trademarked for in Canada, and it's a really good education program, and the signage is awesome. We have signs that are going to be, and boot brush kiosks that are going to be going up at trailheads in the ancient forest and Mount Robson and so on, so it's something to consider. And engage your citizens in reporting suspected invasive plants in the community and when recreating. And even if they don't know what it is and they're not sure and they haven't seen it before, they can certainly submit a report. So that's it in a nutshell. I hope I got it done in less than 15 minutes, and we have time for some questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Adams. Motion please to receive the delegation. Councillor Pearson, Councillor G. Questions for the delegation? Councillor Pearson.
Just a couple things, and you touched on it earlier, and it's something we've been seeing. You mentioned the wildflower mixes, and is there any way of controlling the sale of those in our retail stores? Because we see the wildflower mixes, bachelor buttons, which I mean I grew up with as a regular garden flower. You see them on the shelf every year. Is there any way of controlling that?
This is something that's been a challenge actually for all of BC and all the my sister regional invasive species organizations. It's very, very, very difficult. I know that the Invasive Species Council of BC has been advocating at, I think, the provincial level and maybe even at the federal level to try and control seeds coming in from outside of our borders. But to tell you the truth, right now, you can go online and you can buy wildflower mixes from just about anywhere.
Yeah.
What we try to do is encourage people to buy wildflower mixes that are sold through our, Seeds West or Gardens West, I can't remember exactly, but we've worked with them out down south to try to provide seed mixes that do not have invasive species in them. Part of the problem is that they may list the flowers, but they might even give the genus, but they don't give the species name. So you mentioned bachelor's buttons. Well, bachelor's buttons and mountain bluet are both in the Centaurea family, actually the same family as knapweed. If you take a look at the flower heads, they're very similar. Bachelor's buttons, the Centaurea cyanus, is not considered invasive in the same way that mountain bluet is. And because of that, the flowers look almost identical, but the leaf structure is completely different. And so when you look on a wildflower seed mix and you see bachelor's buttons, you don't really know what you're getting. And one of the reasons why we use Latin names is so we know exactly what we're looking at. But in terms of public education, it's really difficult to, bachelor's buttons is a term that's used across a number of different species that look very similar. So that's your science lesson for today. That's why we use Latin names, so we know exactly what we're talking about. So I can't say that we have any kind of control over invasive species coming in wildflower mixes. And I know that 2 years ago I was out in just outside of Prince George in our regional district, and in the ditch somebody had thrown in a wildflower mix, and I saw baby's breath, mountain bluet, oxeye daisy, all those things that we really just don't want to spread any further than they already have. So I'm sorry, but I can't tell you that we have that under control.
Okay.
Councillor MacLean, did you have any questions from your end?
I didn't, other than I wondered, do you always contact someone who does the report a week? Because I have reported and heard nothing back from this app. Thank you.
Okay, what I'm going to say here is the Report-A-Weed apps, Report-A-Weed used to come directly to our northern invasive plant specialist, and then 2 years ago they rolled it back to out of Victoria. So a lady named Judith Carter, who is extremely overworked and is the right-hand sort of assistant to Val Miller, who is the invasive plant management person for the province. She responds to Report-A-Weed reports that are deemed to be high priority or regionally early detection species. In fact, she just sent an email the other day. It's very timely. Good question. Asking me if I wanted to receive reports on lower priority, what we call medium and low priority plants. So something like oxeye daisy is way down the list because it's across the whole, it's everywhere. We can't do anything about it. And so I suspect that probably what happened was what you reported was considered lower priority. So I haven't been receiving those, but I have asked her to send them to me so that I can plot them and see where they are. We can verify, in fact, if they are an issue or not, and whether it's in a small enough area that we can do something about. So it's a huge program, the Report-A-Weed. It's used by thousands of people now, and Judith, I believe, is completely overwhelmed, so she's only focusing on what we call the highest priority species, things like knotweeds, horiolism, things that are toxic. So that's maybe why you haven't heard anything back, because she normally will respond if it's a high priority, saying that we've, it's been sent on to people to look after.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, it's sort of out of my hands in one way until I get something from them, and then what I get from them is what they send me, so. Yeah.
Okay.
We are getting to the end of our delegation time. What I will say, Penny, is while council will not make a commitment to your funding request right at this delegation, we will send it to the finance department to bring back to council during our budget deliberations in early 2021. Thank you so much for bringing this to our attention, and we do look forward to doing other things as well, such as website and social media distribution.
Okay, well, that's great. So thank you very much, and certainly contact me when you're ready to have budget discussions, or if you need to discuss any, potential costs further, but also particularly around the education awareness, because that's where we start. So,
Thanks so much.
okay, thank you.
Thanks.
All in favor of receipt? It's carried. We have a correspondence for action, 6.1, for a Valemount Senior Citizens Housing Society request letter of support.
I'd like to
Pearson?
recuse myself at this time as I'm signing authority for the society.
We do have a letter, recommendation here that a letter be provided to the Valemount Senior Citizens Housing Society in support of their application to BC Housing's Community Housing Fund. Councillor Blanchette, Councillor G, any discussion around the letter of support? No? All in favor? Carries. And just for my entertainment value, Wayne, can you switch it back to gallery so I can see Councillor MacLean? For sure. Thanks. For your info, Councillor, we will be sending a letter of support.
Thank you.
Anything out of the reading file? Anybody would like to highlight? Councillor G?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention the, which one was it, the EBCM resolution support about providing access to menstrual products in the washrooms of municipal facilities and condoms in municipal facilities. And I'm just wondering if we can look into that as how can we be supportive of that going forward.
Certainly send it back to staff if you wish. I mean, we do have the contact info here. We can certainly look into it for that. Is that something you would like to move?
I would.
Seconder? Councillor Pearson? Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? Carries.
Thank you.
Anything else out of the reading file? Uh, 8.1, Building Inspector Report for October and November 2020 to be received. Councillor Blanchette, Councillor Pearson, any discussion on the Building Inspector Report? All in favor of receipt? Carries. 8.2, COVID-19 banners and streetlight standards report be received. Councillor Pearson, Councillor MacLean, any discussion? All in favor? Carries. 8.3, we have a 2021 Deputy Mayor appointment schedule. That it be approved. Councillor Blanchette, Councillor Pearson, any discussion? All in favor? It's carried. Was there discussion? No. Well, 8.4, we have a lease agreement possibility with the Valemount Children's Activity Society. The first recommendation here, the lease between the Village of Valemount and the Valemount Children's Activity Society be renewed on July 1, 2021 for a term of 5 years. Councillor Blanchette, Councillor Pearson, discussion, 5-year lease. Mr. Administrator.
Not part of the discussion, but if I could just ask council to raise their voices. Councillor MacLean is having a hard time hearing.
Okay, thank you. Back to the motion. All in favor? It's carried. Second recommendation here that the Valemount Children's Activity Society be provided a letter to confirm the village's intention to provide them with a 5-year lease at 101 Gore Street commencing on July 1st, 2021. Councillor Pearson, Councillor MacLean, are there any discussion around the confirmation letter? All in favor? It's carried. Is that better, Councillor MacLean?
Marginally.
You're coming through like 5 by 5.
Well, I do have earphones in, so it should be coming in loud and clear, but it's all very muffled in the room there. Sorry.
Yep. We'll work on it. 8.5, the Dogwood Lift Station. There is a recommendation here to have the remaining expenditure of $1,376,360 in 2021 taken from the Northern Capital Planning Grant to fund the entire cost of the replacement of the Dogwood Lift Station in the event that the Green Infrastructure Environmental Quality Substream funding is denied. What is council's wish? Councillor Pearson, Councillor G, discussion?
Fingers crossed.
Indeed. All in favor? Carries. 8.6, Columbia Basin Trust Community Initiatives Affected Areas Program Adjudication Committee appointments. Recommendation here, Mr. Eugene Jamin, Meg Osprey, Valerie Kerr, Graham Windsor be appointed to the CBT, CIP, AAP Adjudication Committee, each for a 2-year term. Councillor G, Councillor Pearson, discussion. All in favor? Carries. We do have under bylaws and policies, 9.1, zoning and official community plan bylaw amendment, proposed senior housing development on Ash Street. Councillor Pearson?
Your worship, I'd like to recuse myself again as I am still a signer on the.
At least to the end of this evening, you are. Thank you, Councillor. Recommendation that the Village of Valemount Official Community Plan Bylaw number 595/2006, Amendment Bylaw number 832/2020 be given final reading, 4th reading. Councillor Blanchette, Councillor G, discussion. All in favor? Carries. And that the Village of Valemount Zoning Bylaw number 610/2007, Amendment Bylaw number 833/2020 be given 4th reading. Councillor G, Councillor Blanchette, any discussion, 4th and final? Hearing none, all in favor? Carries. Councillor Pearson, both received 4th reading.
Thank you.
9.2, Village of Valemount Fees and Charges Amendment Bylaw number 837/2020, reflecting a 3% increase to water, sewer, and garbage rates for 2021 be adopted as presented. Councillor G, Councillor Blanchette, discussion on final adoption. All in favor? It's carried. 9.3, Village of Valemount Development Procedures Bylaw number 789/2018, Amendment Bylaw number 839/2020 be given 1st and 2nd reading. Councillor G, Councillor Pearson, discussion. Development procedures. All in favor? It's carried. We have no notice of motions this evening. So we'll start with our Councillor Afar, Councillor MacLean. Council reports.
I didn't have any activities regarding council in the last 2 weeks.
And that was easy. Councillor Blanchette.
So the 26th, we had our OCP meeting here in Chambers over Zoom, just going over the final sort of things that they've been looking at. The 30th, we had our very first community health collaborative. Some of us met at the clinic with Zoom stuff, and it was very, very interesting, a lot of good conversations, and we'll see where that leads. Like I said, it's the very first one, so we broke off into a smaller group, and we're going to be hitting the ground running on different programs that we are hoping we can implement into the health community. And December 5th, I got invited to the fire hall and got to see the brand new fire truck, and it is so cool. And I mean, I know nothing about fire trucks, but it has stuff up on the roof that now comes down so that it's better and safer for all of the guys, and they can put more stuff in there. I was going to climb inside and have a look, but I thought I may never get out, so I forego that. But it is really, really neat. So I'm really excited that we were given this new piece of machinery that hopefully will hardly ever get any use. But
Is it everything the Community Consultation Committee members dreamed it to be?
and more so because we didn't know a lot. Just like speaking for myself, you know. But the guys down there and the chief and stuff are really excited, and it has been utilized already. The cord, the hose goes up automatically. It's just a lot of really cool things that they were pointing out that will make their life easier. So that's good. So a lot of money spent very well.
Anything to speed up a response.
Exactly, exactly. That's it for me.
That's her. Councillor Pearson?
November 26th also had the OCP session with council via Zoom. November 30th also participated in the Community Health Collaborative. Really good conversation with a great group of people. And I will mention, excuse me, one thing that came out of that I learned is a program that's available that's called Healthy Life, HEALTHE Life. And you can register and you can go online and look at your medical reports and stuff, everything that was dealt with through Northern Health. So it's a great step towards a lot of people being able to track their own records and stuff. So December 1st, tourism meeting. December 8th, today, earlier, special tourism meeting as well. Speaking on COVID and the changing in policies. Followed immediately thereafter by a CVRC CCC meeting discussing budget and such for the arena. That's
What's it look like? Just
a lot of
right now?
pretty much. I mean, it's pretty much where it's going to be. There's some exciting stuff coming forward as far as grant-funded projects to replace the chillers at both McBride and Valemount arenas with newer technology that is a lot more efficient and a lot less ammonia on site. So that'll be a positive thing coming out of this year. So
Yeah, looking forward to seeing it at the January RD budget considerations.
correct.
November 25th, I had a bit of a Valemount Glacier Destinations update with Tommaso Alberti. Later that day, took part in a PG chamber webinar, a look ahead with MLA Mike Morris. On the 26th, week 9 of the my Resilient Civic Leadership course. And then later that day, another PG chamber webinar, look ahead with Mayor Lynn Hall of the City of Prince George. 26, tried in vain to participate in the OCP land strategies. I had some connectivity issues at home. Not really too sure there, but I also had to step out for a flu shot, so and then couldn't reconnect. November 30th, I had a Zoom meeting with the RMI mayors, the Resort Municipality Initiative, to consider a communique to the new Minister of Tourism, Melanie Mark. December 1st, had an interview with Cheryl Jan over in Prince George regarding rural connectivity and the regional district Fraser Fort George study. So I'll just a little plug here. Make sure you can jump onto the village website to find the link to the SIRA speed test. It tracks speed test all the way around the regional district for the 10x connectivity gap analysis. December 1st, I had a briefing with Valemount Emergency Services. And then seems to be a trend here. December 2nd, had a rural connectivity discussion with the Prince Rupert Mayor, Lee Brain. December 3rd was the final classroom session for the Resilient Civic Leadership course. And then that evening, a VARTA board meeting. December 4th, of course, the further restrictions and orders came in from the PHO. And then on the 7th, those orders were extended to January 8th, 2021. Just on that, I think if we all do our part now, we can still connect with family and friends over the holidays, participate in, drive-through activities such as looking at Christmas lights and things of that nature. But I think if we respect the orders and the restrictions and the recommendations, we can have a bit of a turn come 2021. Today had a preliminary meeting with First Nation and the First Nation major projects regarding the First Nations Major Projects Coalition, of which they are a member now, just recently. And then this afternoon, a briefing with Valemount Emergency Services. We'll have another one next week, and then we'll take a bit of a hiatus over the holidays or as needed, and then reconvene shortly in the new year. And then, of course, today, the BC State of Provincial Emergency has been extended to December 22nd. What are you waving at? Councillor G. Of course. I jumped right over you.
I was wondering, because you usually go last. I only have one thing to report, and that was the OCP meeting on Zoom on November 26th.
And how was your connectivity?
It wasn't the greatest, but it was not too bad. I just have to turn everything in my house off.
Lights,
Just turn everything off.
cell
yeah.
phones.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, Councillor.
No, that's fine.
Motion to receive, Councillor Pearson, Councillor MacLean. Are there any questions, comments that haven't been raised during council reports? All in favor of receipt? Carries. Have any public comments been received?
None have been received.
Thank you. And we have a notice to proceed in camera. So that council proceed to an in-camera council meeting for consideration of one item per section 91E of the Community Charter to discuss matters related to E, the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements if council considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the interest of the municipality. Councillor Blanchette, Councillor Pearson, all in favor? Carries. On the in-camera portion.
Okay.